My dear friends, my name is Umesh Rao. I have completed my law degree in 1985. Today's subject is interpretation and construction of statutes. I have prepared these notes to help law students. I have prepared it in a very easy to read and listen and remember manner. I advise you to read the textbook once and concentrate on these points prepared by me. I tried my level best to give the best material. If any of you have any problems, kindly contact me through my email. The contents today's topic is what is interpretation and general principles of interpretation. Literal or grammatical interpretation, mischief rule, golden rule, harmonious construction. The statute should be read as a whole and construction of res magis res valet coram repeat, liberal or beneficial construction and strict constructions. Before discussing that, we will find what is interpretation and construction. Interpretation means the art of finding out true sense of an enactment by giving words their natural and ordinary meaning. And why? What is the necessity of this interpretation and construction? You all know that government has to carry out three functions. One legislative function is making the laws and it is discharged by legislature. Who makes laws? It may be parliament or state assembly or delegate authority. Executive function is administration. It has to implement the laws made by the legislatures. Third one is judiciary. What is the function of the judiciary? Legislature makes laws. Then people has to obey it. Aggrieved people, aggrieved person goes to the court and asks for justice. Judiciary interprets the law and administers the justice. The question is court. Can a court expected to interpret arbitrarily? No. There are certain provisions court has to follow. What is the principle? Court must start with the presumption that the legislature did not make a mistake because he has used the word specifically with intentionally. The court has to adopt a construction which will carry out the intention of the legislatures. If there is a mistake or omission of words by the legislatures, the court would not go to its aid to correct the deficiency. Court could not aid the words to statutes. Only exceptional cases, words may be added, altered, or modified. When the legislature's intention is clear, the court should give effect to it. When more than one interpretation can be made, court has to be careful in choosing the interpretation. When meaning is not certain, court should see the object or the purpose of the statutes. For this purpose, general principles of interpretation are there. There are certain general principles of interpretation which has to be followed by the court. What are these principles? One, literal or grammatical interpretation. Second, mischief rule. Third, golden rule. Fourth, harmonious construction. Fifth, statute should be read as a whole. Sixth, strict construction. Now we will go for literal or grammatical interpretation. What is literal or grammatical interpretation? This is the first principle of interpretation, that the statutes must be construed literally or grammatically, giving the words their ordinary and natural meaning. When the words used in the statutes is clear and unambiguous and capable of giving one interpretation, where is the necessity of interpretation, court should follow it. The rule does not give any avenue open for the court to adopt as any other construction. What is the basis for this rule? Because courts presume that the legislature has used the appropriate and specific word to open its mind. Courts are not free to adopt any other construction unless an ambiguity is clearly visible. If it is clear cut, meaning is comes, then you have to adopt. This is the safest rule. Only natural and ordinary meaning of a particular word has to be taken. The particular word may mean differently when used in a different context. For example, the word award. Award means prize. In legal sense, award means judgment passed by the court. Every word, apart from having an ordinary meaning, it has a secondary meaning also. This secondary meaning may be legal, technical, scientific. Example, as per common understanding, coal, lignite, charcoal, they are all included under term coal. Geologically, coal and lignite are minerals, charcoal is different. So the word coal in a language shall be assigned. Which meaning should be taken? Considering the context in which the word was used. When word not expressed in technical terms, if it is addressed to common man, ordinary words meaning to be addressed. Where the act doesn't define word, the legislature should have presumed to have used that word in its ordinary dictionary meaning. For example, goods. Goods means as per contract act, which have come to the market, bought and sold. Now we will go for case law. Ramathor versus Assistant Sales Tax Officer. In this case, question before the court was whether a sales tax is leviable on sale of betel leaves. Whether sale of betel leaves was subject to sales tax. Question is whether betel leaves are vegetable or not. As per the Central Provinces and Bearer Tax Act 1947, tax was imposed on betel leaves. The party contended that no sales tax could be imposed on betel leaves because they are vegetables. Why they are vegetable? On sale of vegetables, no sales tax. Okay. Because party relied on the dictionary meaning of the vegetable. Vegetable, what it says? Vegetable means that which is consisting of or derived or obtained from the plants or other parts. The Supreme Court rejected the party's contention and held that betel leaves could not be given the dictionary, technical or botanical meaning when ordinary or natural meaning is clear and unambiguous. The word of everyday use must be understood in its popular sense in which people knows. Sale is therefore liable to be sales tax. Question is another example whether sugar cane falls within the term of green vegetable. Supreme Court held that green vegetables are those it can be grown in kitchen garden used for eating during dinner. Next one. Technical words to be understood in technical sense only. Certain words are known to have special meaning in particular trade, business, etc. Hence, while interpreting the provision of statutes dealing with such trade or business, same special meaning must be assigned to that particular word. For example, employment in stone breaking or stone crushing as per Minimum Wages Act 1940. Now, what is the meaning of stone breaking or stone crushing? It is a question. Court observed that expression Stone breaking or stone crushing means that the common rock is reduced to fragments by mechanical methods. It is held that removal of thick layers of limestones by breaking, which are cut into slabs for flooring stones, is not stone breaking or stone crushing in commercial sense. When the word acquired special meaning in law, sometimes dictionary ceased to be helpful anymore in interpreting the word. For example, meaning of deputation is different from service. Dictionary meaning is of no help. Conclusion: the rule of literal construction is most strong and safe due to the following presumption. When the language of the statute speaks the minds of the legislatures, court thinks that the legislature know the English grammar and he intentionally use the word. Court thinks that the legislature does not commit mistakes. The rule of literal construction is of no help in the following circumstances: when the words are of doubtful meaning, when the language suffers from ambiguity, when the result derived from the literal construction are absurd, and if literally construed, law turned into futile. Next rule is mischief rule or Hayden's case. What is mischief rule? Why it is called mischief rule? When it can be applied? These are all the questions. Mischief rule adopts that construction by which mischief or defeat is cured. The court should identify the mischief which existed before passing the statutes. Then, if more than one construction is possible, court should favor the one which eliminates the mischief identifies. But court cannot go beyond the words of the statutes unless it is absolutely necessary. The Supreme Court observed that four things to be considered to suppress the mischief. What was the law before that? What was the common law before making the act? What was the mischief or defect for which common law did not provide? What is the remedy to cure the disease? What is the true reason for the remedy? The court should identify the mischief which existed before passing the statutes. Then, if more than one construction is possible, it should favor the one which eliminates the mischief so identified. Court cannot go beyond the words of the statutes unless it is absolutely necessary. Now, the case law, RMDC versus Union of India. The constitutionality of the Price Competition Act 1955 was challenged on the ground that it violated the fundamental rights of the competition, fundamental right of the petitioners secured under Article 19(1)(g) of the Constitution. The Act provided that the control and regulation of price competitions. Section 2D of the Act provides that price competition included not only competition of a gambling nature but also those in which success depends on the skill of the person. Supreme Court held that no, the Act has to be control and regulate only price competition of a gambling nature, gambling character. The provisions of this Act is not applicable to competition in which success to a substantial degree depends on skill. Another case, Smith versus Hughes. In this case, government introduced Street Offences Act 1959. Prostitutes were prohibited from soliciting the prospective customers from streets. In this case, prostitutes are attracting the prospective customers from balconies or windows and not on the street. Now, the question is whether prostitutes to attract prospective customers from balconies or windows can be treated as they are soliciting in a street. The court applying the mischief rule held that they are soliciting in a street. Another case law, Kanwar Singh versus Delhi administration. Government introduced the Delhi Municipal Corporation Act 1957 and rounded up stray cattle on the ground that cattle are abandoned. The officers were beaten up by the appellants, means owner of the cattle. Owner of the cattle were prosecuted under Indian Penal Code. The owners pleaded that they exercised the right of private defense of property and contended that cattle were not abandoned as per Delhi Municipal Corporation Act 1957. They pleaded that abandoned means completely leaving a thing or final rejection of one responsibility and it becomes ownerless as per dictionary meaning. Supreme Court rejected the argument of the owner. It held that it is not necessary that dictionary meaning of the word is to be taken. In this case, what is the intention of the legislature? Mischief was intended to be suppressed and remedy has to be advanced. The word abandoned means left unattended. Third one is golden rule. It is a modified form of literal rule. It allows departure from strict application. It permits departure from literal rule by recourse to consequences of natural or ordinary meaning. When the use of this golden rule permitted, when the grammatical interpretation leads to absurdity, departure from literal meaning is permissible. If the words are ambiguous or uncertain, and if there is any doubt, the court has to give rational meaning of the word. Strict grammatical construction can be discarded. What is literal rule? You know, literal rule means interpretation of construction literally or grammatically, giving words their ordinary meaning. According to the golden rule, if literal or grammatical construction of provision is clear, construction shall prevail. If some doubt arises, strict grammatical construction can be discarded. It is the duty of the court to consider the state of law at the time the act was passed. Now we will go for case laws. CIT MP and Bhopal versus Sodra Devi case. Section 16.3 says, in computing the total income of any individual for the purpose of assessment, it shall be included so much of the income of the wife or minor child of such individual. Wife or minor child of such individual as arises directly or indirectly. Question before the Supreme Court is whether the words any individual meant male or female. We must resort to the state of the law before the enactment of the provisions. What is the defect which the legislature resolved to cure? What is the evil? Evil is the widespread practice of husbands entering into partnership with wife and children, admitting partnership. Intention of the legislature was to include the income derived by the wife or minor child. So any individual means restricted to males only. Another case, UP Bhudan Yajna Samiti versus Brij Kishore. UP Bhudan Yajna Act 1953 was introduced. Object of the act is to distribute the land to the landless laborer who could do agriculture, but they had no land for that purpose and they did not have any other means of livelihood. In this case, what happened? Landless businessman residing in city, Brij Kishore, requested of land. Now the question before the court is, who is the landless person? Supreme Court held that the landless person was limited to the landless laborer and not include landless businessman residing in city. Another example, Karnail Singh versus Mohinder Kaur. In this case, father made a will in favor of 3 sons. Father deliberately disinherited his 3 daughters. During the lifetime of the father, one of the three sons died. Only widow was left out. The father did not change the will. Father died after 2 years and 9 months after the son's death. Now, question is whether the widow will succeed to the legacy of the predeceased son when daughters are not entitled to inherit because she has no issue. High Court of Haryana applied the golden rule and stated that if the father had the intention of disinheriting the widow of predeceased son, he could have made another will or he could have executed a codicil to the existing will. His intention was clear that widow should succeed in the to the legacy of his predecessor son. Fourth one is harmonious construction. What is harmony? Harmony means dictionary meaning, agreement in opinion. When statutes bears more than one meaning, there is a doubt as to which meaning should prevail. Then such meaning should be adopted, which the word best harmonize with the subject and object of the enactment. It is presumed that the legislatures have enacted a law with a definite purpose, and legislatures have used the precise words and left no ambiguity in the legislative language. Provisions of the statutes are well composed, hence, statutes should be construed to avoid any repugnancy. Inconsistency should not be created, not inferred, where alternative constructions are possible. Then that construction should be accepted. Construction leading to inconsistency should be rejected. When two provisions are contradictory, when it is not possible to effectuate the both, one shall be reduced to futility. Example, Raj Krishna versus Binod, Representation of People's Act of 1951 was challenged. Why? Because section 33(2) expresses government servant to nominate or second a candidate seeking election. In the same rule, section 123(8) says that government servant is not entitled to assist a candidate in election in any manner apart from casting his vote. Now there is a contradiction. Question before the court was to conflict between the two sections. In one way, he says that he has to nominate the person. In another way, it says that he should not assist a candidate. Then Supreme Court, it is held that the government servant was entitled to nominate or second a candidate seeking election in the state legislature assembly. And government servant is forbidden from assisting any other manner. Court applied harmonious construction. Another provision, statute should be read as a whole. The statute should be read as a whole and all parts of it to be taken together while construing provision. The provision cannot be interpreted in isolation. The court should, however, be careful not to carry too far for a construction provision with the help of other provisions. The word used in the same section more than once will have the same meaning normally. The scheme of the act as a whole should be the guiding factor. This rule should not be used where the meaning of the provision is clear. Constitution of res magis plus valet quum period. It means it may rather become operative than null. The court tend to think strongly against a construction which reduces statute to be ineffective or useless. Therefore, whenever alternative construction are possible, the court must give effect to that. The court thinks that for the smooth functioning of the system, the statute has been enacted and not to put hindrance to the obstacle in its way. It is a rule of construction that normally no word or provision should be considered redundant or superfluous interpreting the provisions of the statutes. The court thinks that the legislature inserted every part of it with a purpose and every part of the statute should be effect. It is not correct to say that the word used in the statutes are either unnecessary or without any purpose to serve unless there are compelling reasons. Now, liberal and beneficent construction. What is liberal? When words employed in a language are ambiguous, court has to ascertain the meaning depending upon the legislature's intention. If the court takes restricted, narrow meaning, it is called strict interpretation. If the court takes wide or extended meaning, it is called liberal or beneficent interpretation. In this case, when the statute gives alternative interpretation, the interpretation that extends the benefit should be taken. The interpretation that takes away the benefit should be ignored. Benefits cannot be allowed in contrary to statutory provisions. The court should not give unnatural meaning. The court should not create ambiguity. Sometimes it is called remedial statutes because statutes provide remedy for the wrongful act in the form of damages or compensations. These statutes are reformative in nature and not in punitive in nature. Object to the statute is to cure certain evils in a society. They deal wrongful act to the individual and allow damage or compensation to the party. Remedial statutes provide remedy to the redressal of civil wrongs. Remedial statutes extend certain benefit to the benefit of the particular class. They are called welfare legislation. Example, Industrial Disputes Act 1947, Workmen's Compensation Act 1923, Employees State Insurance Act of 1948, Minimum Wage Act of 1948, Consumer Protection Act of 1986. See, remedial or beneficial statutes means for the benefit of the particular class of person. These statutes receive liberal or beneficial construction. In these statutes, courts should give widest operation which language will permit. It is held that provisions of the statute, if capable of true construction, then construction which furthers the policy and object of the act, which is more beneficial to the employee, should be held. These are bread and butter statutes. The purpose of eradication of social malady. It is the duty of the court to offer a much better interpretation. Principles of liberal or beneficial construction. What is this? Liberal construction can be applied only when there is a clear ambiguity. The rule does not have any application when the meaning is plain. In the case of remedial statutes, when the statutes gives alternative interpretation, one which extends the benefit should be taken and another which takes away the benefit should be ignored. Social welfare legislation advance the social welfare policy of the legislature. The court should adopt the beneficial rule of construction. Benefit cannot be allowed in contravention of the statutory provision. The court should not give the twisted, unnatural meaning. Court should not create ambiguity. The benefit should not be given contrary to the provisions of the Act. The liberal construction does not permit the extent of statutory benefit of a legislation beyond the scheme. The court has applied the liberal or beneficial construction to many radical remedial statutes. For example, Minimum Wages Act 1948 was questioned in the Supreme Court because the Act empowered the state government to fix minimum wages in industry. The Act did not define what is the minimum wage. The Act did not take into account paying capacity of the employer. Employer may be small scale unit. He is struggling for existence. He cannot pay this minimum wages. It was challenged before the Supreme Court. It is violative of Article 19(1)(g) of the Constitution. Supreme Court held that Act is valid. The Act is being beneficial legislation. It must be construed in favor of workers. Another case law, Punjab Trade Employees Act 1940. According to the Act, shops and establishments shall remain closed on one day in a week. Owner of the Acts challenged the Act as the Act is violative of Article 19(1)(g). Court held that restriction of fundamental right was necessary because it ensures health and the efficiency of the workers. It is not violative of Article 19(1)(g) of the Constitution. Restriction of fundamental right was necessary because it helps to ensure the health and efficiency of the workers. Now, another strict construction. When words employed in the language are ambiguous, the court has to ascertain the meaning depending upon the legislature's intention. The court can take restricted meaning or wide meaning. If court takes Restricted meaning, narrow meaning, then word, it is called strict construction. Some statutes receive narrow interpretation, whereas some statutes receive wider interpretation. Narrow interpretation is called strict interpretation, wider interpretation is called liberal interpretation. When the words bear several meaning, one of the meaning is obvious with the popular use of the language. If this meaning is adopted, the interpretation is called strict construction. Always taxing or physical statutes should be interpreted strictly. Because what is the purpose of imposition of tax? Tax is imposed by the government to get its revenue. Statutes dealing with the taxes are called taxing or physical statutes. Example, income tax, gift tax, wealth tax. Object of collecting tax is to run the government. It is the source of the income. It is the source of the tax. Taxing statutes should be construed strictly. Why taxing statutes ought to be construed strictly? What is the principle of strict construction? Any person liable to pay tax as per charging section must pay the tax, irrespective of inconvenience. He may be poor or he may be rich. He has to pay tax. Taxing statutes cannot be interpreted on any presumption or assumption. Taxing statutes cannot imply anything, it should be specific. Taxing statutes cannot import provisions. Power to tax cannot be inferred by implication. It is a rule that the subject should not be taxed without clear words. Subject is not to be taxed unless words are unambiguous. It is not the function of the court to give words unnatural meaning to cover loopholes wherein taxpayers may escape tax. Words that taxing statutes must not be stretched against the taxpayer. Subject should not be taxed without clear words. There is no presumption of tax. Ambiguous words are to be construed in favor of the taxpayers. Always it is. Wherein the words of the taxing statutes are giving several meaning, which gives alternative construction. Then construction should be adopted which is advantageous to the taxpayer. Benefits of interpretation is to be given to the subject. Subject is not liable to be taxed on suppose the spirit of law. Equitable consideration is out of place. No taxing statutes to be interpreted on any presumption or assumption. Court must interpret the taxing statutes in the light of what is clearly expressed. Court cannot imply anything which is not expressed. Court cannot import any provisions in the statutes. Strange meaning should not be given. Court should adopt an interpretation which is user friendly. When the language of the statute is plain, court should interpret accordingly.